In this video, we're going to discuss the data science process in RStudio. So our primary textbook in this class is R for Data Science. As I mentioned in our previous video, you're not going to leave this course as an expert on R. You will, however, learn to think through the data science process all the way from importing data to communicating about it. First, you're going to learn how to import data from CSV, Excel, or whatever format into RStudio. Then, you'll learn how to tidy data into a more manageable format. You'll transform your data by narrowing it down, creating new variables, or adjusting things like dates and times. Visualizing, transforming, and modeling are iterative processes. Sometimes you'll transform a variable one way, you'll visualize it, and then you need to do another transformation. Here we will cover basic visualization. Your other DAX courses, like DAX 601, 603 for example, will cover modeling. Finally, here you'll get practice communicating your results through your challenges in your final project. Our primary tool is RStudio, so we're going to walk through exactly how to navigate it here. It has 4 main panels. So source, on the top left, is where you write your code in a script or markdown file. So that's where your writing will take place. The console, which is on the bottom left, is where you see your code being run. So the console will let you know where there are errors or if something is taking a while to complete. That's where you'll see that sort of information. Your environment in the top right quadrant will show you what data you have access to, as well as the history of your previous code. And then finally, in the bottom right is where you'll see your working directory, files, plots, loaded packages, and the help menu. So let's walk through these. Here I have opened R. I've done nothing else to it. So far, we just see the console opened up. When I talk about scripts, what you can do to open a new script is click on this button in the top left. So click on R script, and you'll see that the console moves down here, and up here we see our script. Here I can print something like hello world. That's the classic introductory code line. I print hello world, and it's going to pop out in the console. I can save this. So let's say I want to save this script. I click File, Save As. In here, I will just save it to my desktop. So we're going to call this hello world. The nice thing about working with a script is that you can save and come back to it. That way you don't have to replicate, try to scratch your head and remember what it was that you had written. You can just open it up like a Word document. The top right is your quadrant, is your environment, excuse me. The environment is going to show us the variables that we've created. And don't worry, we're going to cover all of that. So hello, let's say that that's a string called hello, or X is 5. All of these variables that you have access to pop up here. You can clear this environment by clicking on the broom. So click there, remove all objects. Now your environment is empty. You can click on history, and you can see that it's shown lots of my code, and then right here what we just wrote. Down here is kind of a lot of information. The most important thing for me is that you know where your files are, and we're going to work through creating a new project together. But this is where R knows to pull from. So let's say I click on desktop, and we can look at last summer sessions project. If I set this as my working directory, now it knows that it needs to pull files from here. So this quadrant is essentially your connection to the rest of your computer. When you plot something, it'll pop up here. Your packages, which again we will cover, your packages can show up here, and so on. You can switch between projects up here. I want to open a different project, and we're going to create a new project together. But this is kind of the basic of where you want to go in this environment. When you're writing code, you want it to be in a script or a markdown file. So let's click Quarto document. We're going to title it Hello. We're going to put my name as the author. And we are going to go over Quarto documents in depth. But I'm just showing you. You create those from here. Let's go back to our slides. So that's the basics of just where to get oriented for looking in RStudio. If you want extra help, this resource, our cookbook chapter 1, is really helpful. Let's talk about working directories. Working directories are really, really important here in data science. I like to think of working directories as addresses. So they tell your computer exactly where to look for a file. Creating a single R project to organize your files with this class or another class or a specific project is a really, really great practice. So a working directory is saying, here is the exact folder that I want to work in. Something important is relative versus absolute paths. So something like this. Again, thinking of it as an address. Diamonds.csv is maybe like the most granular level of information. It's the file itself. But it's held within a data folder, which is held within DAX 601, which is held within desktop, and so on. So you can think of maybe users as like the zip code, and then Larry as the state, and then so on and so forth. We get the state, the street, the apartment number, whatever. It's getting more and more specific. When you use an absolute path, which again includes things like users, Larry, whatever, then the person running your code is going to need to have the exact same file path, which they won't, because their desktop is going to be their name rather than Larry or your name. And so the person running your code will need to modify the file path. In this class, I'd like you to use relative paths to store your data instead. And so a relative path is this. Just listing data, the folder, the smallest level folder that the data is in, and the dataset name. And I'm going to teach you how to create a data folder. But that's what I want, is to think in terms of relative file paths. But it's important because your computer needs to just know exactly where those files are. That's why we think about file paths. And I'm going to show you how to edit them in RStudio. So you can check your working directory using getwd, get working directory. It shows you what path your files are stored in. Or you can set it to your current folder using set working directory. Let's create a 601 project. Make this a little more material for you. I've already created some files here, and I just popped them on my desktop as an example. Instead, what I want you to do, and I encourage you to pause this video alongside me, work in RStudio on your own, we're going to click this. We're going to save. We'll save it. We'll save our selected. And we're going to click New Directory, because I want you to create a DAX 601 working directory to put all of your files in. We're going to click New Project. You're going to create the project as a subdirectory of wherever you store your files. I like to store my main folders on my desktop. So whatever class I'm working on, whatever class I'm teaching, I have those folders right there. You can browse wherever you want. Let's say you want to have it in documents instead. I'm going to put it in my desktop. And I'm going to call this DAX 601. You can call it whatever you want. I suggest that it has the course name, maybe the semester in it. We're going to create our project here. It's going to take a little bit. And now we have a new project. We're going to set this as our working directory just so I can show you how to do that. So we want to tell pull from this folder that we've created. Set as working directory. You see when I click this, click more, set as working directory, this code comes up in the console. Let's say I want to type get working directory. That tells me my absolute file path right there. that tells me where it is trying to pull information from. Let's say that you just download a file and you don't put it into this DAX 601 folder. If you're in your DAX 601 folder and you try to reference the file, it won't be able to find it. It'll say, but you're telling me to look at this address and this file isn't there. What I suggest you do within this DAX 601 project is click on New Folder and just call it Data. And then every time you download a data set for this class, put it in this folder. That way you can just use the relative file path of data and then, diamonds.csv or whatever file it is. And then your code can be replicated by everyone else in the class because we all have a data folder like this. So again, what I did is I clicked on New Folder and data came up. Now, let's say that I want to write an R script. Again, we're just going to do something really simple. We're going to print hello. That's the function of our script. Great. It's always good practice to comment your code. We'll talk about that in the next video. So print hello is what this code is doing. And we're going to save it. Save as, and let's just call this hello.r. But our computer knows that it's in DAX 601, and we'll just save it here. And now it pops up here. I can exit out of this file, and I can click on it here. It opens right back up. So those are the basics of RStudio. Those are the basic things that I want you to be able to do. If you run into any issues with creating a working directory for DAX 601, let us know. We'll troubleshoot it on Piazza or in office hours. Getting help. So one of the major things about coding is really just learning to troubleshoot, learning to figure out the errors as they come up. Because packages in RStudio are always evolving, things change, and no class can teach you every single problem that you're going to encounter. So one of our skills that we'll work on together is learning how to troubleshoot. So there's a few ways. You can always type a question mark in your console, a question mark in a command or a package, and it'll pop up information in that bottom right quadrant. So let's say you are confused about how to use the mutate function, for example, which we'll learn about in a few weeks. Type question mark, mutate, enter, and information about that package will pop up. I encourage you to search keywords in the textbooks. Let's say you're confused about a left join versus a right join when we get there. Type in left join. Because our texts are all HTML, you can easily search Control F. Piazza for this class is your go-to. Again, we're learning how to troubleshoot together, and part of that process is asking questions and working through the solutions as a group. And then I encourage you to Google. Googling is allowed. Googling is encouraged in this class. Stack Overflow can be a really helpful resource. But just make sure that you add R to your search, because sometimes other coding languages will pop up. So let's say, okay, you've read through the text, you've posted on Piazza, you're still a bit confused. Just Google left join R and see what comes up. Our next video, we're going to discuss Quarto documents, so stay tuned.